call and we can get everybody connected. That would be appreciated. And then we also have Kat Rodriguez on here who can monitor in our chat box for us. So if you have any questions or any technical pieces, if the sound goes out or any of that, please just type in directly to Kat and she can try to help you problem solve that piece. Okay. So this, if you have not joined us before, this is our SEL Social Emotional Learning Forum number 4. So we try to get everybody together once a month for all our partnering districts who implement SEL or just learning about it. Some of you implement the whole school-wide, some of you in just smaller groups. And the goal is to get a few people to connect, share resources, and get everybody in community space to problem solve and work together to support each other through SEL. So basically the structure is just a quick who's on the call, which you did in the chat box. We're gonna have Shirley Smith be our presenter on the topic for today. We're gonna have some discussion points throughout, and then we'll do a wrap up and closing at the end. And then just a couple Zoom norms I wanted to run through really quick. Use your video if possible. So thank you to everybody. So it looks like we are doing that. So it just makes it a lot easier once we can see everybody and connect that way through conversation. You can be muted. Sometimes that does help because little distractions in the background. And then you can unmute yourself or you can just hold down the space bar and that'll unmute also. And feel free to use the chat box, raise your hand, unmute yourself, chime in, ask questions all throughout. If you are going in the chat box, if you're not familiar, just remember there is an everyone or a private chat to send out. In the breakout rooms, we're actually not going to do breakout rooms today. We're just going to stay in a whole group discussion for everybody. Okay. Any questions on the norms or the process? Okay. So here's our next piece, and I want to introduce Shirley Smith, and I'm going to let her take this piece over from here. She's going to be our presenter for today.
And also I wanted to say, Lisa, please chime in. Please chime in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how many of you were here last month when we did our forum? I just wanted to know because we talked about the academic, personal, and goal setting. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Oh, there's still
yes, coming through loud and clear.
Okay, nice. Okay, because I wanted to get some input from you that were here last time and ask, what did you take from the meeting last time and were you able to implement some of the things that you learned? I can't hear.
I think, Stephanie, you're on mute.
We weren't at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's okay. So can you tell me just offhand something about goal setting that you've utilized this school year?
Well, we use our NWEA testing to grade level test the kids in math and English and reading. And we use those scores to help the kids set goals for personal growth.
No, your computer.
Yeah,
Okay.
computers. We're hearing it from two different
Great.
places.
Oh, okay, it's an echo. Okay.
Put that side of your computer. Right. Down. Yeah. There, now it won't echo.
I know, Jill, you were joining us for our last session, is that correct?
Yes, Anna, I was hired late in the school year, so I just started in November. So I think everything was a little bit of a whirlwind to me during just over the last couple months, but I'm slowly getting acclimated to it. You know, I've never been a teacher. I was a school social worker in the past, but I've never had to write academic goals or really look at a lot of the academic piece. So that's kind of been hard for me to, you know, write a good goal for the students or help them write a goal for themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let me ask all of you, what exactly would you like from this menu as far as goal setting and monitoring progress? What questions?
Shirley, I've always had a hard time data collecting, like in like especially SEL goal. It's hard for me sometimes to, or teachers, you know, if you have to send a student back into the classroom to do all those charts and graphs, and they don't want all that extra work. So how do you progress monitor and keep your data?
Progress monitor. Great question. Progress monitor.
I would love for you to share anything you got with me, girl. All I can get.
Okay, and we're going to get to that. I just wanted to know if it was anyone else in the forum, and Lisa, you can jump in if you have something previous as well. Anyone else in the forum that had similar questions or has done anything outside the box to do the progress monitoring that Jill was talking about as well? We used EasyCBN.
Well, I mean, a really key piece is to make sure the goal is the students to set, and the students understand what the goal is. Sometimes younger students will jump from 0 to 60. You know, they want to go to 100%, or I'm perfect, or I never ever get in trouble, or whatever the context is around the goal. And so, just talking with students about what you've noticed. I noticed on your last math test that you were able to get a higher score than your average, or in the last week I have not had to take away your reward sticker card because you had a really good week. So as we work with students to monitor goals, to bring it to a reality, a conversation that's about their real world and something they can be excited about, somehow that just changes the tone of the goal setting conversation, especially for students who sometimes feel like they just disappoint, right? Like my teacher's not happy with me and I disappoint my parents, so I don't tell them. But to remind them about some success they've had, have them remind you about a success they've had in the beginning of the goal setting process. It just brings everything up to a more positive, optimistic level.
Right. And I think it also depends on the age also, Jill. And this goes for academic as well as behavior goals. So again,
yeah, I have a lot, sorry to interject. I have a lot of kindergartners, first, second kids on my caseload.
Mm-hmm. So, and it depends also how long, so you set a goal with the kid, because initially, I know even as a kindergartner, you may want to bring the parents in when you get ready to set goals with them so that you make sure that they're obtainable for the student, as well as the parent can maybe help them with those goals at home, reiterating the skill or whatever you may be trying to teach the student. And you also want to look at how long are you going to wait for the goal to be mastered or not? Or what other, and depending on the student, if they're SPED or not SPED, or if they're having a 504 plan, or that's something you may want to look at, because if they're not able to obtain the academic or the behavior goals, you want to look at a different avenue. How can you set up a plan for them to do that? And that becomes part of your progress monitoring. So depending on the system in which you implement or use, you can utilize paper or you can utilize software. So I'm not sure exactly what your district may have.
You got some free software for me, Shirley?
We can try and look for some in that.
Okay.
Right. So what other questions do you have just offhand when it comes, because I know we're getting around to testing season. So we're looking at goal setting, so from August when school started up until now, what have you been doing as far as different goal settings in both academic and behavior? Because they go hand in hand, because without the behavior being under control, we can't have sufficient academic success.
Well, what we do, like Thea mentioned, is that we take our NWEA scores in the fall, and we, this is one of the things that's hard for us is that we conferenced, or the teachers tried to conference with each one of the kiddos to set goals. Then what we did is we thought we found this wonderful progress monitoring tool out there that wasn't so wonderful. So I think where we're really struggling is that interim progress monitoring tool that helps us know that we're getting, because NWEA NWEA isn't meant for interim progress monitoring. Like we just finished our winter term testing, and we're looking at that to help the kids understand whether they met their fall goal or whatever. But we don't have anything, I don't think, that supports the teacher or supports the kids in, am I doing it? How am I doing right now? We got something called Easy CBM, and it didn't end up being easy. So
Okay. So it was more work for you to learn the process of the
it was a lot of work for one person, and then the interim testing seemed not to be at level.
Yeah.
And so
accurate.
we had kids blowing through vocabulary tests that they shouldn't have been, that we felt. So I don't know if Thea can speak to the math piece of it, but so we're just really struggling on how to help our kids with those interim.
Okay. And we'll look at that. Lisa, you have any more input on about the interim?
You know, I tend to think about the SEL component first and how our frame of mind influences our results. And I think sometimes teachers feel tense when it's testing time, and those interim scores are, you know, there's some pressure to see some improvement. But if we can come in with this sort of a settled, positive outlook and really build students' self-esteem, it's not a great time to have a discussion about behavior on the playground, or right, because we're getting ready, we're kind of settling ourselves. If you're doing social emotional learning already with your kids, they understand mindfulness, and sometimes we relegate that to our advocacy time, our SEL lesson time. But to do a little mindfulness before that testing moment can make a difference and change scores. And so now that's kind of what I think of when I think of, well, how do I get these scores up? I mean, your instruction is so important, and you're doing everything you can do to just, you know, always have that first best instruction and strengthen that core instruction you're delivering every day. And then when it's testing time, to set kids up for success. You know, maybe you all have some animal crackers and a bit of juice. And if, you know, high schoolers like an animal cracker and a bit of juice themselves. I taught high school math for many years. So just getting them ready emotionally and physically to do their very best and to think about how they felt when they were successful at something, you know, all of those things that we know to do to get them in the mindset.
Yes. And as you talked about that, Lisa, I was thinking about, like Lisa just said, a brain break. And there's different components set up for the SEL. And we're going to move towards, who's familiar with the SEL, the CASEL, the 5 competencies?
Like me to move forward.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you what they are right off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, we're going to pull that up for you. How about that? So what Lisa was talking about, in the middle we have the SEL, the social emotional learning aspect, and you have the 5 components here: the self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. These components are very essential when it comes to our students being very successful inside and outside the classroom. And, you know, again, as Lisa talked about the mindfulness, we have to keep in mind that depending on, and it really doesn't make a difference of the age, whether it's from the kindergarten even up until high school. Even I find myself, if I'm not in the right mindset when I'm in a classroom or wherever I am, professional developments, that can be portrayed as good or bad. So I have to make sure I'm in the right mindset in order to make sure my audience understands what I'm trying to come across as far as whatever I'm trying to deliver to them education-wise. So with that being said, it starts with the teacher or yourself, Jill. What behavior specialist, is that what your position is?
I am called the student and family advocate
All right.
for the district.
The student and family, and you said the district.
For the Hanover School District. So I'm in 2 buildings, about 20 miles away, rural, very rural school district.
Right.
Right now I'm at the elementary school, and this building is so small. I don't really have the space here, which kind of makes it very challenging. So I pick up and go from the vice principal's office to the teacher's lounge to the human resource office. Now I'm in the superintendent's office because he's not using it this time. So it's a very small building.
Right. You're one of our teachers. We used to have teachers that were on carts. That's
Yeah,
how,
honey, I need a cart or something. Because, like I'm like 3 bags on my shoulders going
I
from
got
room
you.
to room.
It's all
Man.
good. You work with what you have to. It's all good. It's social emotional learning. Absolutely. So
The struggle is real sometimes.
Exactly. The struggle is real, and you're having to face those challenges. So just think about our students and our teachers and the challenges that they have to face as well. So going back to the 5 competencies of the social emotional learning, that's where we, here GSN, we have a curriculum and components for the social emotional learning. And we can share that with you as to where to find those that you can dig deep into, and it goes from primary to high school. So there's different activities, there's various things that you can do to learn with your teachers, talk with your students. If you have some of the students one-on-one, is that Stephanie yawning on me? Is that you yawning?
Oh, no,
it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
That's sorry.
Okay. I'm just trying to keep you up. But
No
yeah,
offense.
and also random acts of kindness as well. We have a lot of curriculum at your fingertips that you can utilize specifically for your kindergartners, or if you're going to the middle and high school as well, since you're district-wide. So you just let us know, and we can make sure we can get that information at your fingertips, because I want to make sure in the forum that you grab some things that you can utilize to take back with you so you can implement, because I know, time is very precious. And of course, we want you to get everything that you can out of these forums. So can someone talk to me about tier levels? Who's an expert on the tier levels?
Well, expert is a really, really loaded word, but as educators, I think we all have been exposed to this, so I'm glad to share what I've been exposed to. When we do work around MTSS, we want to make sure that we're focusing first on that core, because what we do for our core is supposed to meet the needs of 80 to 90% of our students.
Right.
And oftentimes when I look at the data that comes out of schools, we're seeing something closer to the 50 percentile of kids are being met, needs are being met in the core curriculum. And so what we want to do is we don't want to, point a finger and cast some blame, but we want to strengthen that core. And so for social emotional learning, the ways that you set up your classroom and your advocacy time, your circle time with your kids, that is a prime opportunity to meet the needs of 100% of our children, because you can see all of their faces, the curriculum is very much in their reach, and we can build capacity to be strong in those social emotional competencies. But it's really wonderful that we have the idea of MTSS as we get ready to teach, as we get ready to build school culture, because we understand that there will be kids, not always in the orange, but some students who maybe are going through something tough this week, this year, maybe just this morning, but they're showing up in a different way and with a little bit more need for support. And so to be prepared, especially in social emotional learning, to give a little bit more support, and we've thankfully moved far away from administering discipline when children don't meet our expectations, but in thinking about the ways that children need our support and what can we do to set them up for success and to encourage them and invite them to think about their behavior in a different way. And then in our red tier, we have already, the ideal is that we already have training and expertise in administering some really intensive level of support. So maybe that one-on-one, or that's the student who you allow to have a partner or a buddy all day long, or maybe you have a special corner where they can go and take a friend with them from the stuffed animal cart, or if they're a 15-year-old, maybe they get to go on their Snapchat and just remind themselves about the connections that they have out there and that they're not walking around alone. But Planning in advance is the key to MTSS working well. Working together as a team, sharing what we do in our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 interventions. You know, sometimes in faculty meetings, just taking the time it takes to create a list. What are some things that are working for those students that need extra support? And we can move from the SEL conversation to our math conversations, our literacy conversations, and just really take the time to build out an MTSS plan so that your system of supports supports you. It supports you to administer what a child needs because you've thought about it in advance and you've gotten that help to make a list, to get training where you need it, and to be ready with lots of things in your toolbox that you're good at and that can support your kids.
Absolutely.
That was good. Thank you.
Absolutely, because what we had talked about before is in order to get to know our students, we have to build those strong relationships with our students, because students, whether they're kindergarten through high school, they know whether that adult cares for them or if you're in their corner or not. So just remembering their name or remembering something special, their favorite food or just anything, and they're like, oh, she remembered that. And that's a part of the SEL model as well. And as you dive into the GSN SEL curriculum as well as RAC's Random Acts of Kindness, you will see various activities like Lisa was talking about that goes into your planning component as teachers, advocates, anyone that touches those children, from the cafeteria people all through the custodians, you know, some type of SEL components that are utilized throughout the school day, throughout the school year, and it's repetitious. It's key to our students, especially those that need that stronger foundation or that stronger sense of security throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout, you know, the months and the school year itself. Do I have any questions when it comes to anything about the SEL, and how many have looked into the GSN curriculum or SEL curriculum? I can't hear.
That we use it for our crew time, which we changed the name from advocacy to crew, but we still use the curriculum.
And how often do you use that a week?
2 to 3 times a week.
And what have you found in implementing those different activities or strategies, especially with the circle time, checking in?
I think the kids like it.
Oh,
they like having a chance to speak about things that are going on in their life and things that are relevant to the topic of study as well. So, and oftentimes it creates a depth for a topic that they've never even realized existed before.
Right. So how do you think you could utilize coming from circle time going into looking at setting up a plan for the various students for academic success?
I do within my crew. I can only speak about my crew specifically, but I talk to them, like right now we're doing growth mindset. And so I talk to them each about the fact that they all have things that they want to improve with, and it doesn't have to be academic. It can be, you know, shooting baskets at basketball. So they're just about to start doing their own comic strip. And you know, I told them the other day, I gave them like a little precursor intro to it and said, you know, so you guys need to actually choose something that's relevant to you that you would like to improve in your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your algebra score.
Right.
So I'm hoping that they're going to get excited about it when they do it. But my kids respond fairly well to these discussions that we have.
And that's great. And then getting them to respond out loud verbally and then having them to transcribe that on paper, then you get into the writing component, and that will set them up, giving them something familiar, dear to their heart that they want to talk about. And then hopefully that will lead to their academic writing and go from there overall. So utilizing that beginning circle time. Because anyone else can talk about how they utilize the SEL circle time? Do you utilize that, Jill? Or are you usually one-on-one with your students?
Right now, I'm just one-on-one. I'm still trying to look at, you know, our data that we have through, we have the Panorama survey that we administered to the kids last well, I wasn't here then. I didn't start till November, but last fall. So I'm looking at the data from some of the kids on my caseload and kind of setting up groups that way. So I'm kind of a little bit behind the curve since I got hired late in the year.
Okay. Okay. And have you had a chance to look at the GSN SEL curriculum?
No, but I plan on doing that since I think like what I'm hearing, I could get a lot of good resources and what I could use for groups and individual sessions.
Absolutely. I think it would be beneficial to not just the kids you're working with, but to yourself as well, because I know myself when I go through some of the activities, I'm like, well, that's a good idea. I wonder. And then I start to think back as when I was not kindergarten, but maybe middle and high school with some different activities. I was like, that would have been nice to have, it, you know, around when I was growing up, you know, and just being able to reach out, because once you have them in circle time, if you ever do groups, then if they're all thinking, a couple of them are thinking of similar things, then they're like, wow, we have that in common. Well, maybe we can talk more, and that helps with their social emotional, and that helps with their bonding and social skills within just their peers.
Yeah.
So, you know, and probably with some of them, that's what a lot of them may need, because you never know what the students are going through nowadays. Who knows? You know, it's not a perfect world. But, you know, I'm just trying to think outside the box of some different ways, Jill, that we can help you. And if anyone else is on the call, if you have some different ideas that you can suggest to Jill that has worked in your learning environments, I'm sure she would be open to that.
Yeah, I could use any suggestions. I mean, I was a school social worker in my previous life, like 6-7 years ago, but a lot of my resources are dated and they're really not research based. So I just kind of pull from here and there, like old counseling books. So anything would be great.
Okay. And we do have some more. You want to go to the Intervention Central, Anna? There we go. You click on that link, and we'll send this information to you as well.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
And this will give you an idea of different things to go about using RTI, response to intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Just different aspects. And again, just like you said, although you're not in a quote unquote teacher role, realistically you are, because they're still learning from you.
Right.
Aspect. That's why I say when it comes from even from the bus drivers on, when I lived in Florida, and if our school made the grade, basically everybody got paid a stipend. That included the bus driver, the cafeteria, the custodian, everyone in that school that touched those students.
Oh, wow.
A stipend. So that's why it's imperative that, you know, maybe some different professional developments can be made for everyone in that building, not necessarily just the teachers, just the counselors, because at the same time, you'll be amazed at how many people have really, really changed some of the students' lives. You know, whether it's the students that get to talk to the custodians and, well, why do you do that? Or why you do this? You know, because I have to pay the bills. You know, just think about, you know, telling their story and their narratives makes a difference in some of these students' lives, and they come back and they talk. Here in Colorado, I know we had a principal. He was a custodian at a school, and he moved up. He went from the custodian to a teacher, and now he is the principal of a school, a Stedman Elementary School. So these stories are ongoing, and they happen. So we have to start somewhere. So I'm saying that to say, if we can have more conversations or professional developments within the school building, because everybody matters. And once the kids can see various people, oh, here's a custodian, but, you know, listening to him be positive, utilizing SEL, I think that would be a good advocate as well for our students.
Mm-hmm.
The nurse.
Shirley?
Yes.
So while we're on the topic of helping students to monitor their own progress, behavior interventions and tracking tools are found in this intervention.org site. Right. And if you look in the center where it says self-management, there is a self-monitoring 7-day plan that you can support students with. And then, so how to teach students to change their behaviors through self-monitoring. And it really puts the control in the child's hands and allows them to feel that sense of agency. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's more long-lasting change when it's change we choose ourselves rather than driven by an incentive or a disincentive. So, you know, we don't need to dive deeply into this, but just for you all to know that this is one of the richest sites for intervention thinking. And when you're doing group discussions around MTSS, when you're talking about new ways to support our students, this is a very rich site that's full of new ideas and new resources. If you're on the call and you have had some experience with Intervention Central, can you let us know what you use it for? Julie, can you go back to the primary screen or the home screen?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be looking at that.
Interventioncentral.org.
Yes, can you just click into that so that we can look at the main screen? So one of the things I really like about this site is you see academic intervention link at the top and behavior interventions. And so if you're having a conversation, a team meeting, for example, about a particular student or a particular behavior that many students have been showing up with, you can use this as, you know, almost another person in the room. So if you click on behavior interventions, and then you come down to special needs, teaching children with developmental disabilities, forced choice, reinforcer assessment, extending learning. Click on extending learning. And there are very few IEPs or 504s that are written that don't have a plan specifically around extending learning, so giving students additional opportunities to connect with the core curriculum. And so this is a place where you can go together as a team, or in some professional learning communities, they take turns where, you know, this is your week to bring what you've used, what you've pulled out of intervention.org or interventioncentral.org. So just want to familiarize you a little bit with the site and take some time with it, and especially the academic and the behavior interventions, I think are really, really useful. There's also a search tool at the top. Sorry, Shirley, go ahead.
No, that was just me. I was going to say thank you, Lisa, for sharing that.
Oh, you're very welcome, Stephanie. Okay, on to the next slide.
Sharing the why, impact of goal setting, relevant measures.
So Lisa, would you like to share on this piece for us, please?
Sure. So this is an article that was written through the lens of an Army-Navy Academy, and it's explaining sort of the psychology behind motivation. And really that's a very foundational understanding for goal setting, is that in order to look at a goal with optimism and also to have the determination to shift behavior in order to reach a goal, we really do need to be motivated. And so this article is linked onto this slide set in case this might be of interest to you. It is applicable to young children as well, but absolutely to young adults. Just thinking about how do we help students to set those kinds of dreams that are big enough and are tangible enough to them that they will be willing to make a shift. You know, it's so hard to change our behavior, habits. So many students have habits that involve a lot of screen time. You know, their way of chilling out might be just to leap onto the couch and pick up those controls and start playing a video game. Right. And becoming more conscious of how we invest our days and our time can get us farther ahead to our goal. The change has to happen, though, where a student says, you know what, I'd rather do something now that is going to make a difference for my future. So the article around impact of goal setting is about helping kids have a dream, encouraging them in those dreams. And one of the things that I really love about research on motivation for students preparing for careers is that the more tangible, or the more they believe they know what the path they're going to take to that dream, the more likely they are to invest in getting there. Sometimes students will say, you know, I want to be a physician, but they don't pay attention in biology. And you can see there's kind of a disconnect. A young student who wants to become something that takes a lot of discipline, like a pilot, like a pro sports celebrity, you know, to join the NBA or play in the Super Bowl, to bring that back to what they need to do differently today, but also, you know, having them read stories about other young people who had a similar dream, who achieved that dream, and what did it take. And so just creating that path, if they can see the path, they're more likely to take steps on that path toward their dream.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any questions about the article, and what do you think about that?
I think I need to read that myself so I get some motivation.
I think you're very motivated, Jill.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to actually move forward to look at the SMART goals. Now, who's familiar with SMART goals?
We are.
Why they're created? Why do you think we're stressing big time when writing the SMART goals, we're doing it with our students? Why are we doing that? What do you think? Who is the goal about? Our students.
Yeah.
Right? So why not have them, in order to get them to buy into it, why not have them come with us? Okay, we're gonna work on some goals today. And this goal is all about you and being successful. How can I help you be successful? So what goals are we gonna start with? And again, in order to start with our SMART goals, we have to know our students. You know, not just looking at the data on black and white, not just looking at that. We still need to know our students inside and out. How do they learn best? What works for them? What doesn't work for them?
Right.
Do they work well alone? Do they work well with peers? Cooperative learning? So those are some of the things when we get ready to sit down and work with our students in writing the SMART goals that we really need to make sure, especially by now, if they've been in our classroom since August, we should know a lot of information about our students, as well as their family homes, engagement, and what's going on. I know it's tiring, but at the same time, you would be amazed at the things that you learn about the families. And then when you get ready to write the different SMART goals and how you get the family to buy in to help them with those SMART goals as a whole. Because sometimes, you know, again, it takes a village.
Yeah.
Not just you and I and the student. We have to have those parents come in, right?
Right.
Anyone want to add anything about SMART goals?
One of the things that I would like to add to those is I'm working with those goals with my students, but something that I learned today is like I need to find out the learning styles that they have.
Absolutely.
So because, you know, one of them will be really good, like focus and work on it, and the other one will be, we call it messing around, but it's not. You know, he has to be active in order to learn. So if I know their learning styles, it's way easier to do those goals.
Absolutely. That's a key point, because why would you come to the table with a draft of a SMART goal for that student and it's not going to work for him or her? So therefore, you need to really know that student and learning style. That's a great idea, learning, you know, because we all learn differently. So that is a big component. And although the students, they may not know the technical name as to their learning style, but they know how they learn best. So with that communication between you and the students, that's how we get the bangs for our bucks, right?
Yes, and then one of those things, especially for my K to 5th grade, I use pictures. So I kind of reduce sometimes that vocabulary that I use with them, because sometimes they look at me like, what is this? So, and then I will start talking and they get bored and then they don't pay attention. So using pictures is the best way that I get in my goal set up for them.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Whatever it takes to create those teachable moments for our students, I think that's mainly what they do need overall. Anyone else want to share about SMART goals?
Well, I was just telling my colleague here that we do those for ourselves and we don't do them for the kids. So it seems smart to have the kids do it too. I'm interested in the pictures. Like I mean, we're teaching middle school, but we've got kids that are not very self-aware, I think, in a lot of cases. So like, what kind of pictures do you use to help them write goals?
Well, I haven't used it. As I said, I use it for kindergarten to 5th grade. And basically, my plan, I haven't implemented it yet. For middle school is kind of talk with middle school is more talk about it. You know, let me show you a picture that I use for kinder. So it's this kind of simple. I don't know if you guys can see it. This is for kindergarten 5th grade. But as I said, like, I may show it to middle school, but it may not work. So I'm just kind of giving the example for kindergarten 5th grade that it works for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still learning on that, on the other part.
I think something you can maybe look at for middle school, if you look at the multiple intelligence, Howard Gardner, and how, and you know, the kinesthetics, it's 9 of them. It's 8/9 of them.
Yeah,
So the
I
multiple
remember that.
intelligence, I think that's something you can take from and look at those learning styles. Because even as adults, you know, we utilize and tap into those things because we all learn differently. So I think in looking at that, that may help you, because there's a lot of research out there when it comes to multiple intelligence also.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That'll help you with middle and through high school. And then you'll be like, once you look at the characteristics, Joey, that's how he does, that's how he learns. And that's okay. That's okay.
So I watched a teacher creating SMART goals with her 6th graders, and I think about the word timely, the T in the SMART. She was asking them to set a goal that would be accomplished within a month, just to get them used to the idea of setting a timeline to a goal. And a month is an amount of time that a 6th grader can really get their head around. You know, they can consider the month that's just gone by and how long a month is and what might be possible. And then after the student set a goal, and this student set a goal that by the end of the month that they would have all their homework turned in, because this teacher allowed students to turn their homework in all the way up to the time the semester or the grading period ended. But I mean, students could not usually catch up. So he was going to have all his homework turned in within the month when the period was over. And then the next thing she did was she took out, she had him take out his journal and write 5 things that he was going to do to achieve that goal within that month. And so, you know, he said, do my homework more. And she said, what does that look like? What does it look like? Set a goal for this week. So and so she took that month goal and brought it back to something that the student would do each week, what they would do immediately, and then what they would do each week. And the thinking that was happening between, you know, the questions that the teacher was asking and the answers that the student gave, I think really I felt certain that student was growing in understanding of their role in meeting their goals, and also taking a short period of time and asking a student to write down some change they were going to make within the week. I think it really made it more real, because it's easy to set a goal about something you're going to do 6 months from now or next year. And then finally, before that conversation was over, she said, may I hold you accountable to the things you're doing this week? And he said, what does that mean? And she explained. And then she said, what day would you like me to ask you if you finished it? And he said, Friday. He said, what time on Friday? And he said, will you come see me? And he said, at the end of the day. And so I just felt like all the components were there. And I don't have a slide, but this is reminding me, I want to make that slide, because that was such a rigorous and impactful conversation for that young man. And I felt like they both walked away with expectations clear. And that is the purpose of a goal setting process, is that you have a timeline, that you know the expectations. And I believe that that teacher was really wise in having a sixth grader set a timeline that was just a month's timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great that you pointed that out too. Adriana and I talked about it when we were setting the goals with her students on the time links. I think as adults, educators, advocates, we're thinking in the month or the quarter or by the end of the semester where we think they need to wrap up or where they need to be, and all the goals are not on the academic calendar. But I think, you know, in the schools, a lot of times we're writing it that way. So it's the flexibility also with that. If it changes, if life events come up or they need more help, or we get that little celebration and they reach the goal earlier too, that just on our end of things, supporting students with that flexibility piece, keeping them accountable. Of course, like you said, I love that you said the date, the time, that's right up my alley. So like getting that for the students, but then also being able to be flexible. So if those action steps didn't help, that you can extend it and you can give them those other pieces. Because I do think, you know, if, like Sandy, Adriana and I talked about it too, a lot of ours were falling around the same time because it was convenient for us. This is when we're progress monitor, this is when we want them done, and it didn't necessarily fit with each individual student. So it was something for us to go back to also.
And I think that's great.
Awesome.
That's really great, especially with sixth grade. I think it's even going to primary would be even better setting those, because as they get to the college level, you see where, oh my gosh, the organizational skills aren't there. So even if you can go back early and start that, I think that would be really great, you know, and again, holding them accountable and still remembering life does happen. No one's perfect, you know, life happens, and giving them a small leeway and letting them know that. I think that's very, very important for all students. Okay.
We have this?
We're gonna get it. Okay.
And we're going to send this to you. We're going to send this, everything to you.
You better, sure.
Well, because I'm looking at, okay, we're almost done, but I wanted to make sure if you had any extra questions or concerns or anything that we didn't hit on that you wanted to ask before the next meeting in February. No one? Oh, come on, we got something. No? So let me ask you this. So some of the things that we went through today, what are some things you may try and implement or look at or review in order to help you between now and our next meeting next month?
I think Stephanie and I are both interested in checking out interventioncentral.com. That looked very user-friendly and, you know, easy to access. And then we've already got notes on the SMART goals. So I look forward to seeing your worksheets, your examples, your action steps template, because that all sounds really good.
Okay.
I like the idea of them having it write it in a journal. And, you know, I just had this idea, like just off the top of my head, I was like, oh, maybe in crew, when we're doing these lessons, maybe they actually have a journal for crew that they kind of keep track of the lessons that we're doing. And then maybe like we give them a reflective time at the end of each like unit where they can talk about what they learned or any aha moments that they had or any more questions that they have. And then that would also be the place where they house their SMART goals. And then you can check on those pretty regularly because we've already got this time built into our day.
That's great.
Good. Wonderful.
That's great, yeah.
You guys have a very unique situation too, I think, Stephanie and Charlene.
Yes.
Also with your crew time. Like, it's pretty amazing the time that you get with your students that I haven't been able to go out and observe, but just hearing from Charlene, all the time that you get and that individual with your students is pretty amazing. So the goal setting is going to be so great for your school.
Yeah, we definitely like our crew time, and I know that the kids like it too. So
yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff you guys have. And this one we'll send out, and again, it has like the worksheets and templates, and you can also Google a few more too. There's all sorts out there, but these are just the ones that we think are the easiest, most straightforward to use. And Adriana's used these ones also too. So they're pretty straightforward. We just, Adriana and I would flip it over and kind of write all the positives and great things to know about the kids, and all the connections and all the wonderful people that are in their life who can say great things about them. So before we even attempt a goal, so we don't go in there thinking, okay, this is what they need to fix, or I'm going to make sure they get better at math, or I'm going to make sure their attendance improves. We don't even touch that yet. We just start, how great is this kid? What's the best thing that they can do? What does their coach say? What does their mom say? What does their math teacher say? Of just the positives. Everybody has things that kids can work on. We know that because we just jump to that, I think, as educators, you know, of what you can do. So we took a break and stepped back. And as Adriana just mentioned earlier too, now she's really realizing she should have got the learning styles in there too. So it's kind of a process for all of us as we go. But I know just starting with that positive and all those great things first really set our mindset and a better path too before we even attempted to look at some of the SMART goals.
And just to add on it, it may sound rude, but it's hard. It's hard for middle school and high school, but I think that way you kind of learn to be patient and they get something from you because you're seeing the positive thing instead of, oh, they're not passing grades or they're not the behavior is not the best and things like that. But it's hard. I have to admit it. It's hard, but as you do it, this is my second time doing it for a couple, and it's getting easy because I see that part, like why they're a struggle, why they're doing this instead of just judging.
Right.
Instead of saying what we need to fix right away.
Right.
It's very easy to do that. So yeah, it took a while on a few kids were more challenging than others to really find, especially if it was a behavior you had difficult relationships. Yeah. But we started only that first. And so some were like, you know what, they really like to draw, or they really like to do, and just some kind of link to start building that relationship before you jumped in and got that connection buy-in from the students also to help write their own SMART goals. So, and then all these resources on here we've used in the past, and they're just a very helpful one just to get you started.
Right.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question.
Yes.
Just about like the SMART goals, and my understanding is kind of that you're not really guiding the kids at first to write academic goals. Is that true? You're just like having them set a goal for anything in their life?
Well, I would say that depends on your building and your administration and what they are looking at. That's what I would say, because I can say academic or I can say behavior, but I'm not there in your classroom. I'm not there in your building. So I can't really dictate that. But I would certainly, I mean, it's worth having a conversation, sitting down with your admin or your department, the facilitator, whoever in charge, and asking them point blank. So when we're looking at our students' SMART goals, what are we looking at? Academic behavior, what outcomes are we seeking for these SMART goals? That's the bottom line. I know testing is coming up, but at the same time, what outcomes are we really seeking in writing these?
So, and one other perspective is when we're teaching something the first time, something brand new, it's great to connect to something students are interested in.
Absolutely.
So if I'm teaching how to understand what 1/6 of something is, I might bring in Hershey bars and have them break them into the 6 pieces, right? It's not because we're studying Hershey bars, but because we're studying something that is intangible, and this connects kids. It gets their attention right away, right? And so the first time I set goals with a student, I let them choose the topic, and I make sure it's about something they're really interested in. If they have a hobby, if they are playing on a sports team, I have them set a goal around their own personal best, something they're interested in. And then when we have to set a particular goal around academics or behavior, then it's much easier for them to understand the process, because they learn the process at a time that you had them, right? They were really engaged with you.
And I've also done it with 5th grade group, where we kind of went through goal setting, and I had my students set a goal for myself in terms of how I was teaching. So giving me feedback on our literature groups, because those were big and they wanted a little more freedom and those type of things. So they set a goal and had a progress monitor me. So I had to like kind of put myself out there and see what it was and walk through, and they would check in of, you know, you let us have time, but we wanted 15 more minutes on this, and we'll do, you know, just back and forth, and how I was going to grade them or how I was going to do these pieces. They're almost setting it for me, and then we could move into like a classroom goal, or we did like a lit circle goal. And then after we were just comfortable with it, and I realized it wasn't just, this is what you're doing wrong, here's the steps to fix it. It's look at how much better these groups got now, because I took your feedback, or look how great we're working in partners now. And then we worked our way back down to doing the individual goals. So it just became a norm in the classroom. And then the goals were very fluid also, because everyone was working on different pieces and they shared, and we had goals posted and all of that. But I just, for me personally, it always helped if I did it first and showed them, to take some of those questions away, or to realize that we all got to put ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit. And just, you know, I did what I asked my kids to do. So I don't know, I went about it that way. But there's not right or wrong way. And I think it'll depend on where you are with your students. It's the first day of school, or if you've known the kids for a few years and you're a smaller district and also have the crew time. So it's so very different in every different place. Right. If it's school-wide, small group, but.
Thanks for
I think that's super cool that you let them set your goals, Anna. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
They're going to remember that.
But yeah. But then they're excited about it, because it's so much easier for them to set goals and correct somebody else, or help someone else, than it is to do it for themselves. So it just started out that way, and then they could see the process, and then, you know, work backwards. So
I think students enjoy you being transparent and honest, you know, putting yourself out there. They can appreciate that more. And again, that builds that stronger bond and relationship.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks. That was a great answer.
Okay, we're going to respect your time. It's actually 4:01, and I'm just glad we got into this meeting with different ideas and concepts when it comes to SEL. And please feel free to utilize the GSN curriculum with SEL as well as RAC. And if you have any other questions or concerns, please email us and let us know. So maybe we could probably try and do some research and find something, you know, to answer your questions that you may have.
Yep. And if you have any questions right now, or would like links to the curriculum or anything, you can just go ahead and leave that in the chat box so that I can follow up with you afterwards. And then here, I'm sorry, we have Lisa Leith, who is helping quite a bit, joining with our conversation. So thank you, Lisa. But if you have questions on this one also, there's Shirley and myself and Ellen, who was unable to join us for today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great evening.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. All right. Goodbye.
Cool.
Hey, Jill, I will send over that PowerPoint over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, can you just give me your email through
Chat here.
box, and then you're working with Donna also?
Yes.
So she, I'll have her send you the cheat sheet also.